Hey guys, once again, this is a playoff bracket breakdown here on Ballin in the Boot. I'm your host, Jace Lejeune. Joining us is Grant Sachere, Alex Allison, and Daryl Felker. And guys, we're going to talk about Division Two select bracket, and we had some close quarterfinal matchups in this past round. You go back and look at Grant was actually at this game. Archbishop Shaw and JFK. So we'll talk a little bit about it, but Shaw able to survive it, man. JFK was definitely a team that could pull the upset, but Shaw was able to hold on to a 21-14 win over JFK. Now the number one seed gets a similar type of team like JFK and Mass and Prep. It was an athletic team that's made some deep runs before, including winning a state championship just a couple years ago. Mass and Prep, an all Baton Rouge matchup in the quarterfinals, able to get it done. A close game. The Mass and Prep able to defeat the Estruma 14-6. So it's Shaw and Mass and Prep in the semifinals. And we go back to the bottom side of the bracket. Edie White, man, Alex, I just feel sorry for you, man. I mean, once again, Vanderbilt Catholic just comes up this short to defying Alex Allison's come up this short, man. 23-18. So Edie White will advance where they'll play the Leesville Wampus Cats, led by Xavier Ford. And this was the only matchup which, the winning team didn't really have really much of a problem with. Leesville was able to win 50-12 over Booker T. Washington of New Orleans. So we have E.D. White taking on Leesville at E.D. White. And we'll also have Shaw and Mass and Prep for our semifinal matchups. This was actually the semifinals I projected at the beginning of the bracket. We get it with those four teams. And we're going to start off with Alex first here to talk about Shaw and Madison Prep. Tell us what you think about this matchup and who you think is going to move on.
I think this bracket was really interesting last week because we had teams that ended up being very closely related in terms of quality, facing each other often. But I think we're going to see these semifinal games not be too close because the level of play between those quarterfinal games was a bit different. I think it was just a different game being played between Shaw and JFK than between Madison Prep and Estroma. And I think Shaw's just a better team. Now, Madison Prep's a good team. They're athletic. They have a lot of talent, all those things. But I do think Shaw's going to win. I think they're going to win comfortably. I think JFK was their biggest scare and will be their biggest scare in this bracket. And I think they will move on here. And as the favorite, unsurprisingly, going to the state championship.
Daryl, you've seen this Massive Prep team play. They did beat you high. So this is no pushover in Mass and Prep. So what do you think, or I guess, are Mass and Prep's chances of pulling off the upset and defeating the number one seed here?
I actually, it may be wishful thinking, but I actually think Madison Prep has a good shot at pulling the upset off. I mean, I watched the ending of the Shaw and JFK game last week. It was an amazing game. Came down to the last drive, last few plays of the game, and it was a game. Grant kind of touched on it earlier when we were talking, but Shaw's defensive front seven was lights out, and it really helped them win the game. But Madison Prep they just keep rolling, and they lost 3 games to start the season and have not lost since. And I feel like those 3 losses it's better than being undefeated because you kind of saw what you need to improve on, what you need to do better, and they've been winning since. And kind of feels like they figured things out. 14-6, 1 possession win. Shaw, they had a 1 possession win, and yeah, like I said, it may be wishful thinking, but I like Madison Prep. I liked what I saw when they played U High. And yeah, I'd like to see an upset here. So I'm going to roll with Madison Prep, actually.
Oh, okay. Wow. I like that, Daryl, going with Madison Prep here. I do actually. I disagree with Alex. I think this is going to be a challenge here because I thought going in Shaw. No offense to Edie White, I thought the road to the dome was going to be tougher than the actual destination. And
I do agree on that, by the way.
It includes I think it also includes Mass and Prep. I think Mass and Prep has some of the similar qualities as John F. Kennedy. They got athletic quarterback, they got athletic skill weapons, and their defense is pretty good as well. And I'm sure Grant could talk about. But I think Jasper Parker did get hurt in the game. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm sure he could talk about it as well. Mason Wilson's a great quarterback because, of course, Grant had to disappear midstream, with no warning at all. Like, hey, I'm going to just disappear and not come back. So I guess I'm going to talk about who I have here. But I'm going to still roll with Shaw. I think Shaw is still the better team. But I do agree with Daryl that there is a high chance that this could be an upset because of what the challenges is similar challenges that JFK brought is Madison Prep. So you're gonna have to be a similar team like that twice in a row. And Shaw had need a couple defensive stands to survive that one against JFK. Now I'm gonna trust Coach Tierney, his Eagles football team. I'm gonna roll with Shaw, but I do agree with Daryl that there could be an upset because Madison Prep does provide some of the similar qualities as John F. Kennedy. Guess who decided to show up? It's Grant decided midstream to leave and join us back. But Grant, you were at the game with Shaw and JFK. First, I want to ask you something. Did Jasper Parker leave the game in this one?
He did. He came back. So he had a high ankle sprain.
Okay.
He's gonna play. He's gonna
Okay.
play.
Okay.
He's fine. But
Did you say a high ankle sprain?
Yeah.
The question is how effective it would be.
How effective is he going to be on that?
Yeah, that's going to be the question.
He's gonna be fine. He's gonna be fine.
Okay.
He's from the West Bank, guys. He's from the West Bank.
Sprain's tough, but yeah. But you were at the game with John Kennedy, and you even talked about how tough of a challenge it was going to be for Shaw to win that one. It was really the defense that came up big, as you mentioned, a couple stops near the goal line to help them get that win. Just talk about that win briefly, and I guess what do you think about this matchup? As I mentioned, I think Madison Prep's a similar type of team that can bring similar challenges to Shaw in Madison Prep.
Yeah. So JFK and Madison Prep are very similar stylistically. They like to throw the ball. They have a lot of athletes on the outside, and they also have some athletes on the inside. JFK had a really good quarterback in the mind, Darren Spork. Then of course, Madison Prep is a really good quarterback with Tylen Johnson. So Shaw will have a similar challenge this weekend. But JFK, I think, was a top 3 team going this playoffs. I really do. They would have been the number 2 seed. They were before they had their wins taken away from. They were the number 2 seed. In the power ratings, and then of course they had their forfeited wins, and then that brought them down to number 8. In actuality, if U-High was never let back in the playoffs, they would have been the 7th seed, and it would have been on the opposite side of the bracket. And I actually probably would have had them go in the dome. I said before the year that they were a dome team, and they're a dome team. I really thought that JFK and Shaw were probably going to be in the state championship game when that happens. And it showed. I mean, it really was a state championship type of atmosphere. Although it was played at a high school stadium, it had a state championship atmosphere. Archbishop Shaw won 21-14. I said this game was going to be won because of Shaw's defense, and Shaw's defense came through. They only allowed JFK to score 14 points. JFK actually had a good offensive game.
Yeah,
they shut him down the goal line.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. And it was because Shaw's defensive line came really. Shaw's the whole defense, but really, especially his defensive line, came through in those big time moments. And so that's why they were able to win the game. They went on goal line stand for the final play. So a lot of credit has to go to Coach Hank Tierney for the job he's done throughout the season and leading them back to the semifinals for the second year in a row. But a lot of credit is go to their defense corner Adam Giglio for getting this team prepared, since they have not allowed more than 14 points since the week 4 loss against Rummel. Since then, they've only allowed 14. The most they've allowed is 14 points.
Yep. To your point, I mean, all flashy offensive talent, 2 Michigan commits on the offense side of the ball, but at the end of the day, defenses have to step up and in order to be a championship team, and that's what Shaw has done. So we all have Shaw, except Daryl. Daryl picked Madison Prep with the upset over Shaw.
You just want to learn, man. You want to learn a lesson. But anyway,
I got to get one. I got to get one upset in every week. I feel it.
Next round.
All right, here we go.
I don't disrespect the Madison Prep. I'm just saying Daryl's got to learn. He's got to learn.
All right, guys. Let's talk about E.D. White and Leesville. I think this is an intriguing matchup. I mean, Daryl, me and you saw E.D. White play. I mean, so did Alex. So Alex saw E.D. White play as well. I think their defensive front is really good. And they have themselves a really good challenge coming up with Xavier Ford. So that's going to be a great matchup on the line of scrimmages. But that's going to be an awesome matchup with these two teams playing. The game is at E.D. White. I'm going to start with you, Daryl, first because – I mean, you saw them like I did in their loss against Letcher. Well, I came away pretty impressed with E.D. White in that football game. So give us what your thoughts on this one, and what do you think about E.D. White? Do you think they can go to the Dome, or do you think it's Xavier Ford and Leesville?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of walked away with the same feeling as E.D. White as you did. I mean, as we talked about how dominant Letcher's defense was all season, only allowing 50 points. E.D. White put up 20 points on Letcher's defense in that game, giving them one of their toughest games of the season. And I mean, but the reason that they did lose the game was, I'm sure you remember, Jace, was a 95-yard run from Trenton Cheney, the Letcher running back. And I mean, this is I think that's going to be the deciding factor in this game. Can E.D. White shut down Leesville's running game? If they can't, I think Leesville wins this game in the same kind of close game that they kind of had with Letcher. But I like E.D. White's path a little bit more. Leesville kind of had the layup game because of last week, because of the whole U-High situation. So they might be coming in a little lackadaisical, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I hope that they're focused up. They know it's going to be a tough game on the road at E.D. White. E.D. White had a really nice win, real close win over Vanderbilt Catholic last week. And I mean, I think this is going to be a real good game. But I think E.D. White, I think they find a way to not shut down Xavier Ford, but I think they find a way to slow him down enough to pull out the win at home.
Alex, you also got the chance to see E.D. White against Vanderbilt Catholic, and I know Vanderbilt Catholic's been a while since they defeated E.D. White. But hey, I mean, E.D. White's been a pretty good team in Vanderbilt. There's a pretty good Vanderbilt Catholic team this year, and it's pretty tough to do that twice. So you knew that was going to be a tough game, especially with the two teams that are familiar with each other. But now you got to play Xavier Ford and the Wampus Cats. What do you think about this game? And do you have E.D. White going to the Superdome?
So at we kind of all expected the semifinal matchup going into this bracket, and I believe everyone else had E.D. White winning this game at the preview time, and I had Leesville.
Yeah.
And I kind of keep going back and forth on it now that it's actually time to pick the game. I think there are aspects of this matchup that are really good for E.D. White. That I think E.D. White's going to be able to slow down Xavier Ford. They're not going to shut him down completely, but they're going to be able to slow down Xavier Ford. And I think they can keep Leesville in the 20s, let's say, probably. My question is, what is E.D. White's offense going to look like against Leesville's defense, which has struggled and not had some rough games throughout the season? But I just don't believe in the ceiling of E.D. White's offense very much. That's the thing that worries me. And like E.D. White is a very run heavy team. They're very ball control centric. I keep going back and forth on it. I'm gonna take Leesville to win the game. Actually, I think it'll be fairly low scoring. I just don't know if E.D. White can just run up the score on Leesville's somewhat questionable defense. So I see a game going something along the lines of like 27-24, 24-20, something along those lines, and I will go ahead and take Leesville to win.
Okay, so Alex has Leesville advanced to the Superdome, and that's the case. I think it'd be great for Xavier Ford to be under the bright lights and have a lot of people following really see Xavier Ford play.
I'll be brief with this, but the one last thing I wanted to add is that Leesville got to sleepwalk to the semifinals. That can go either way.
Yeah.
E.D. White had a much tougher path. The Vanderbilt game was obviously a tough game against a rival and all of that. Leesville got to face an 18 seed last week in the only blowout. That might be a bad thing for Leesville. It might be a good thing for Leesville because they're healthier. We don't know. So we'll have to see.
Grant, which way you're leaning towards since we're split between Daryl and Alex here?
I actually had Edie White going into the state championship.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I just had an epiphany that probably since last night, and just really looking at Louisville. We talk a lot about Xavier Ford, and rightfully so, but Raymond Navarro brought up a great point on our
Yeah,
stream, Jace, that their
he did.
quarterback, Antrell Broom, has thrown for nearly 2,000 yards, has thrown for 25 touchdowns. Two of
Mhm.
the receivers
Wow.
have actually had over 600 yards. I mean, they're just as effective through the air as they are in the ground. When you have an expected back like Xavier Ford, you give the ball to X. But Antrell Broom has thrown for nearly 2,000 yards. Thrown for 25. Yeah, his interception total was high of 11, but he's thrown for 25 touchdowns. And when I know they're a run heavy offense because they've run for damn near 4,000 yards on the season as a team. They also throw for nearly 2,000 yards through the air, so they're a pretty well balanced team. And if you key in too much on Xavier Ford, they're just going to throw the ball through the air.
Yeah.
And they have two really good receivers in Julius Brown and Mike Davis, and they're both juniors. So both of those guys will be back, and also the quarterback, Antrell Broom, is a sophomore. So even when they lose Xavier Ford, they still have a chance to be really good next year.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to pick Leesville to go to the state championship. I really am.
Yeah. I kind of went back and forth on this one. I mean, at the beginning of it, I had Edie White going to the state championship, maybe because maybe it's recency bias of actually seeing them and calling the game, and seeing them in person. I didn't really get a chance to really see Leesville. I know we heard a lot about Xavier Ford, obviously, and obviously so. He's getting close to being the all-time state leading rusher, which is pretty crazy to say.
Wow.
I know Trey Holly's got that record, but you want him to have opportunities. But you mentioned Antrell Broom, the quarterback. I'll tell you what, I came away pretty impressed with Grant Barbera as well for Edie White. I think he's a pretty good.
Yeah,
Now that was a different game you saw him,
it
Alex.
was a different game.
Different game, but the game that me and Daryl saw him, I thought he looked pretty good.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he actually looked pretty good in that.
He looked. I mean, he made plays, but he looked unimpressive against Vanderbilt. I'll be honest. He
Okay.
completed like 2 passes.
Yep.
Okay, there's also been some games where Elijah Haven did not look great, and Elijah Haven, I still think
Yeah.
Elijah
Yeah,
Haven.
I mean it's one game. I'm not gonna like.
Just because you saw one bad game does not mean, oh well, you must be a really bad quarterback.
No, I get that. I totally understand that.
I
It's just
saw Elijah Haven.
It's a rivalry game in the playoffs, but the chance to go to the semifinals. Any of those quarterbacks are not going to look great, especially when everything's on the line.
Right. I mean, I've seen
I saw their first game, but yeah, I get what you mean.
So it happens. It happens. I've seen Elijah's worst games this year, so it happens. But
No, I understand that. He made plays. He's a good player, but I don't think he. Anyway, yeah.
no, my point was that this is a balanced team. I think they can throw it if they have to. Right? They're not incapable of throwing the ball. They can run the football with the wing T offense that they have. Right? And their defense is pretty stout. Charles Dietrich as well. I came away really impressed with their linebackers and their front seven. And and they're going to have to. I think they're going to key on Xavier. He's going to get his yards. I mean, you're not going to completely shut him down. I think we were talking about. I think his worst game last night. We were talking about Graham was like 93 yards rushing in the game. And that's because he was hurt. He had to come out. You're not going to totally shut him out, but I think they can keep the ball away from him and then running that offense that they have, play some keep away. And the thing that they've done against Lutcher, they've had some long drives. If you remember that, Daryl, that Lutcher game, they kept the ball for a long time. If you can limit their opportunities and play keep away, that's a good formula to have. I'm going to still lean with Edie White, but it wouldn't shock me with Leesville winning that football game. And it'll be cool to see, to be honest, Xavier Ford. But
this game might be really short.
Yeah,
I can see that happening.
A short game with both these teams being able to run the football, but we'll see. We'll see. We get Edie White and we'll get Shaw. But hey, you never know. And there's been actually some pretty close quarterfinal matchups, as you can tell. 3 of the 4 were one possession games in the quarterfinal, so it's actually turned out to be a better bracket than we really thought about. Entering the bracket. to be honest with you. So, yeah, we'll find out and see who comes out Division II Select and represents in the Superdome. But thank y'all guys for watching, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure to go to our website, gridironfootballusa.com, for another edition of Ballin in the Boot.